Alrighty, I try to do a live stream, but the YouTube gods, little g, are not favoring me at the moment. It could be that my internet connection is a little shaky, but I will go ahead and post my rant anyway. Just it won't not be interactive for the one or two people who drop questions here and there, which I really appreciate. Don't let me make it look because that's what makes it fun. So, Main Man, Mustard, Cryptic Cowboy, a couple other people popping in, not Lee yesterday, if I pronounced that right. So I appreciate it. Um, but yeah, it's fun, and right now I've got a lot of time on my hands, so it's helping me kill the time, and hopefully the rants are interesting. What I'm going to talk about today is something that just slowly has been kind of dawning on me as I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. So let's talk about a couple things. One is this happened about 6 or 7 years ago. At one point, I would just go through because I had limited time. I would just bookmark tons of videos, and I would say mostly on esoteric things like conspiracy theories and stuff like that, where I was like, that might be interesting, but I really don't have time to spend on that just right now. So I'll bookmark it or favorite it, whatever. Come back to it later, and then I'd come back to it later, and I had a couple hundred of these, and I went back to watch them, and I'd say about two-thirds of them had been removed. So all this content that was out there, somebody decided to that it was against, content policy or something like that. So boom, 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 they're all gone. And it's kind of like erasing a past in a way. And to me, make of it what you will. To me, it seemed very dystopic in that sense. It's like, it's up to me to decide what's true or not. And I have this concept with me called fuzzy truth that I use all the time. It's like somebody might point at something and say, like aliens are coming down and eating cattle and sucking all their blood out and stuff like that. And you look at it, well, it's not aliens. It might be a government agency or it might be aliens. But you look at it and all of a sudden, because somebody made this outlandish claim, you're not verifying whether the claim's correct. But are they finding cattle that have all the blood drained out of them, have a lot of organs removed from them? Yes. And it's happening all over the United States. It happened in Williams in Arizona when I was living in roughly that area. So to come and tell me that that's not a thing is wrong. And just because somebody might make an outlandish claim like, oh my gosh, it's such and such this, somebody comes on there and says, no, it's not. This is misinformation. Just destroys the video. You lose like a flashlight pointing you at something that's anomalous. I'm not saying that conspiracy theories are always right, though some of them definitely are. But usually, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Usually, if a lot of people are like looking at something and it's weird, their resolution to the problem might not be correct, but they're identifying something that needs investigation. And we see that all over. Like, that's the big danger of a Ministry of Truth type thing that suddenly decides, you peasants can't think well enough for yourselves. Well, maybe you should try fixing the public schools. And again, public schools in the United States are different. They're by state, they're by county, they're by school district. So they're all over the map. But generally, they're kind of all on a downward trend. And people aren't thinking anymore. People aren't taught the basics of how to think. I wouldn't say I'm like the strongest thinker out there, but I think for myself a little bit. And the idea of like analyzing evidence and the idea that somebody makes five claims about something and one of them is wrong does not necessarily negate the other four claims. I see a lot of people using this to avoid uncomfortable truths. Somebody's out there making all these claims, somebody comes up with a bad claim. Well, that's false, so I'm not going to listen to you anymore. You're stupid. I'm not going to listen to you. You're just protecting yourself from something maybe you don't want to hear. Now, if somebody's consistently doing that, and if somebody can be proven to be doing that with malfeasance, that's a whole other story. Yes, you should not listen to them. And yes, if they're doing it malevolently with an ill purpose intent, maybe their stuff should be banned. But it should be kind of like a process of like jury peer type review rather than just some fiat group that's unelected just deciding what's truth and what's not. And another thing that I really hate about the corptocracy of the social media is like they go, "Oh, you violated the TOS," and you're like, "Where?" It's like somebody coming up to you as a police officer and saying you broke the law, and you go, "What law do I break?" And they just hand you a 300-page volume of stuff and say, "Somewhere in here, find it yourself." That's basically what the SM companies are doing. And it's wrong. It shouldn't be that way. I mean, yeah, they're private companies, but in a sense, once you kind of establish yourself as an oligarchy or a monopoly and you control the public square, then things get a little different legally, constitutionally, than if it's like this vibrant marketplace and people can choose various platforms rather than just stuck with two, maybe three. Um, that's a different standard than one person controlling 90% of the traffic, 90% of the public discourse, and then suddenly saying, we're going to get this giant terms of service agreement or whatever, and if we don't like what you say, we're just going to go through, oh, it could be this. We'll just ban you and then throw the whole book at you and say, okay, figure out what you did wrong. At least sometimes now they're telling you what you did wrong. Like I got a W for something and it was something related to this, and I disagreed with it, and they make you do this little training thing where I disagree with that as well, but I did it. So that's why to me it's always big tech plus one. Big tech, you try to gain your following, do what you're going to do, but always kind of slowly kind of push it over to this plus one thing. Now I've been neglecting the plus one, so I've got to get back on the plus one for me personally, but I'm mostly doing this for fun. I'm not seriously trying to grow things too much, although I might try to, who knows. Um, but anyway, one of the other things I noticed about um, YouTube, and again, I love the technology of YouTube. The fact that a bozo like me could theoretically be sitting here, essentially start my own TV channel, and could potentially have hundreds of thousands of people watching a live stream, or similar technology like Twitch or whatever. I mean, that is amazing. But when it's got to go through the funnels, less amazing. And one of the things that I've noticed, like say van life. Like originally I started watching kind of van life, living in the car, living in an RV type channels a long time ago when I was just kind of sick of everything costing so much and I was looking for an asymmetric way to get out of that. And I'm like, well, uh, I saw this guy living in his van, and he didn't make it glamorous. It was some guy who also was kind of writing a history book on the side, but it was obvious he didn't have a lot of money, but he did have some kind of income because he was able to buy food, he was able to put gas in his van, he was able to afford maintenance. That's kind of the story that's outside the scope of these videos. But now I'm seeing a lot, and some people have called them out. Um, where somebody's talking about their life away in their freedom and they've got this $100,000 sprinter van all kitted out, or even better, they're not rich because they did it themselves, so they spent only 25,000 bucks because most of us just have 25,000 bucks laying around. And then again, somehow they have food, money, gas money, maintenance, all this stuff. And then there's the thing where, what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's just like I'm starting to analyze this stuff. I mean, there were legit people in the beginning who were like borderline homeless that I used to watch. The cycle with them would be they'd go through, they'd get a YouTube channel, people would find it interesting. They'd also kind of get into some kind of business or something. Then they'd get a house and go off, and then their YouTube channels would kind of, they're still there, but they're not like they were. Like Will Prowse, perfect example. Um, and there was another guy. I forget what the guy's name, but he lived in his Honda Element, moved to Michigan, did some evil post on social media about somebody who died, like right before they died. So everybody blasted him, and he was like legit borderline homelessness, I think. But even he had some kind of cryptic sources of income that were beyond YouTube. And then I'm looking at, it came up again where I was like, I'm on the vibe coding uh, AI kind of space on X, and I'm following this one guy. He's a decent guy. He's got some good coding skills. And then he starts talking about his Tesla versus his other sports car and gas mileage. It's like it always kind of bothered me that all these people had all this spare time to learn how to vibe code and vibe code. Like how's that all being paid for while they're doing it? And then another thing too, I'm watching like, a couple years ago I was just desperate to find cheaper cost of living places. So I was thinking about leaving the country. And that's still kind of the plan, not because I'm unpatriotic or whatever, but I can't, it's just so expensive here. Um, that I'm not really getting ahead and I'm getting a little long in the tooth. So I've only got, 10, 15 years of work in me. I've got to make a lot of money. I got to squirrel that a little bit away. I don't think I'm going to be living to 100 or anything, but I also want to make sure my son's kind of set up. So I got to start making some hay here. And, but all these guys are doing all this stuff, and it just kind of occurred to me, like, where are these guys getting all this free time? It's like they've got all this massive amounts of resources that they can, just do. I'm a little bit like that now, where I'm living in an area where I don't have to pay any rent, and a lot of my food's paid um, for a little while. It's only temporary though. So I have the time to like try to get something going, and I've been enjoying myself. I've been about a week off of work, so I really need to get cracking. I think taking some time off, mental health breaks a good thing, but now it's time to rev up the engines and get blasting. So that's what I need to do. Um, Pardon me, but yeah, it's almost like everybody's kind of watching these things. Oh yeah, and then the expat channels. It's like, oh yeah, anybody can be an expat anywhere, and you can contact us, and if you make over $1 million a year, we'll help you with your assets. It's like, I'm not making $1 million a year. Oh yeah, you can contact us. We'll set up this one-on-one meeting. We'll talk about transferring assets and all the. It's slowly dawning on me. It's like this is part of the internet for the rich. And am I bitter about that? A tiny little bit, but not really. But what does bug me is America has always had somewhat of a class structure, less so than anywhere else in the world. But now I'm seeing it, and we pretend like it doesn't exist for the most part. I mean, there's some snooty people in like the Hamptons or whatever, probably, all into that. But generally on our TV and our social media and all this stuff, we pretend that these stratas don't really exist, even though they kind of do. And it's occurring to me that a lot of people that are producing content and doing all this stuff are freaking rich. And that's how they have the time and the resources to scale. And it's just something to be aware of. The whole idea is kind of like pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. America is still very much possible. People do it all the time, but it's getting harder and harder. And one of the things I was talking about earlier with my dad and stuff is like the legal system and how expensive it is. Insurance, how expensive that is now. And then you have like all the fires in California that wiped out like the Palisades area. And essentially, the insurance companies are like, we're just not going to cover it. Like I saw Allstate, where basically they're saying, I don't know if it was the fire in California or somewhere else. One of the senators was grilling them, and it's just like, their CEOs and stuff. Oh, the CEO's making like $26 million a year, but he can't afford to actually meet his contractual responsibilities to pay out the claims because it would, liquidate the company. Well, liquidate it then. Pay as much as you can. You don't get your 26 million. Sorry, and do what you're supposed to do. It's like it's becoming one-way street. It's like you have all these obligations, but when the higher ups or the corporations or some a-hole has an obligation to you, they can just get out of it. Like Verizon, they crack me up with this 3-year freeze plan. Yeah, you sign up and we'll give you 3 years for we're gonna freeze your rate. It's also a 3-year lock-in plan. So anybody that's coming in now, they're just basically taking away all options. You're gonna become our revenue stream for 3 years and that's it. If you bust out of it, you gotta pay all tons of money. Like that always existed, but now it's becoming formalized, the normal, and other ways are going away. And what a bunch of jerks, man. And just there's a bunch of corporations out there. They're just there's good corporations, and corporations are big, so you can have different departments and stuff. Um, some are good, some are bad. Most are neither good or bad. But it just seems like the pendulum's kind of swung to the point where, you know, the people, too many Americans are just viewed as revenue streams, right? And the people that have a lot of money, even though they're not showing it, are the ones that are more and more taking advantage of the group that's able to take advantage of the American dream is shrinking. And it's kind of obfuscated and hidden, but it's the reality. And there's tons of YouTube channels that talk about this, and they get into kind of American hate. I don't I don't get into American hate because, one, I'm a capitalist. I'm not a communist. I like the fact that capitalism exists. Why? It's not so much that I want to be a merchant or think that making money is the sole goal of life. I don't. But it's free. You do what you want. Generally, the idea is to have minimal regulations and stuff like that. Where it seems like all these other forms of government, it's always somebody deciding what's best for you, and their option for you is so great it's mandatory. Like you don't have any other options besides that. That's no good either. And but anyway, talking about medical insurance cost, insurance for cars, car cost, taxes, and all this stuff. It's like the milk cow, your taxpayers that not only you tax, but you bargain their future earnings by borrowing money against that and then leveraging it. It's like we're being crushed, right? Um, and to me, it's just natural. It's just human nature. People that have power are gonna, I've got a house in the Hamptons with two Ferraris, but I want a third because I don't have a Porsche, and I want to add a Porsche. So I need to go back and see how I can maximize profits. I'm making 20 million a year, but Bob down the street is making $27 million a year, so I got to make 30 million. It's just how it is. But the milk cows, us taxpayer people, are being crushed. I mean, to me, it's always amazing when I look at an area, say, what's the mean family income for that area? Typically, it would be like, 60,000, 80,000, 90,000. And then you look at a price of a house, it's 500. The low end house is 400,000, 500,000. And you look at the basic cost of living, to just have an absolute baseline. Generally in the US, it's like 65,000. If you make less than that, you're actually better off getting on government assistance because people have done studies, and be brave and check this out yourself, that essentially equate, if you take advantage in a lot of areas of all the government subsidies and welfare programs and stuff, you live at about like a $65,000 a year rate. And this is a year too old. I remember reading this article. Who knows? Maybe it's not true. I have a feeling there's truth to it though. And it's problematic. And once again, it's got me thinking about, the other day, um, a couple potential jobs reached out to me for not not like I have a job, but like, hey, these opportunities came up. Some recruiters are like, we're gonna put you in for these jobs. Good. I mean, I hope they work. I need money. But at the same time, looking at all this, would that just keep me stuck in this mess? And I think, a lot of people, I think that our country is actually going in a slightly better direction than it was in some ways, not in all ways, but in some ways to help this. But I don't think it's going to be enough. And I'm looking at the Western world on like what to do, where to go, and it's kind of the same, but not as bad. So I'm thinking like on the fringe, like of the Western world. Is once again the expat stuff is boom right on my radar, just so I can afford to live. You know, the area where I'm staying at right now, there's no possible way I could afford to live. The only way I could do it is by maybe not having a car, which is doable here. Um, and having roommates, being a roommate, being like I was in college, and that's not as desirable for me as it was, say, when I was in college, um, being old and stuff. But that's kind of the deal. Um, So yeah, just I don't know what you do with this information. Just observations I'm pointing out. Um, so yeah, there you go.